We are visiting with the folks from BRANDT. It's Derek Rapp, technical agronomist. We're going to talk to him a couple times a month here throughout the growing season with some timely topics and reminders for the growers. Derek, thanks for joining us. First of all, what are you observing across different parts of the BRANDT territory for planting conditions and rainfall?
I think it kind of goes without saying it's pretty dang wet out there. Looking over the 30-year average for our trade territory, we're somewhere between an inch to 3 inches ahead in terms of total rainfall for this time of year through April and May. So, like I said, it goes without saying, but the conditions are moist. We are seeing a little bit of damping off diseases, some Pythium and Phytophthora and soybeans here and there. That's something that's pretty typical year in, year out, but really it's pretty important to go out and scout your fields, be aware that those issues could be out there with the growing environments we have early on this season, and just to be diligent about crop scouting every acre, making sure that we're covering all of our bases and not missing anything as we get the crop off to a start this year. You know, I think we're always thankful for rain, but we may need to assess replant options in some of the lower lying areas as things dry out, especially in corn, where it's a little more important to have grain production on every plant that we have out there. And so a lot of that's based on your original planting date, the crop maturity, and the potential replant date that you may have for that crop. So it's important to identify those problem areas and then, of course, reach out to your local or agronomist to come out and help you assess that situation and figure out whether or not replanting might be a good option for you.
And you mentioned, some disease in crops, getting out there and scouting. Any particular things to look for on those newly emerged corn and beans, maybe characteristics or certain conditions there?
Primarily Pythium and Phytophthora, which are pretty tough to distinguish between the two out in the field, but really what you'll identify is kind of a girdling of the stem right below the cotyledon, and maybe even some lesions on the cotyledon themselves on early emerging soybean. In those low-lying areas, it's also probably important to take note of where water may be sitting and see if that is going to be an issue as far as SDS goes once we get around to July and August. And really, it's important with soybeans to look for thin stands. I think from most research that's out there, we want to make sure we have at least 75,000 plants per acre. If stands are below that, it may be a game time decision, but if we have stands above 75,000, we're probably okay, especially if we're in 15-inch rows. So it's kind of a case-by-case situation. It's important to get out there in the field and look for those problem areas. And of course, lean on your reps, lean on your retail specialists and your agronomists to help you make those decisions. As far as corn goes, it's not any different than any other year. Typically, corn's going to look a little ugly up until about that V6 growth stage when the nodal root system takes over and that crop really begins to take up nutrients from the soil. So if there's an overall kind of maybe light green to yellowing generally across the field, I wouldn't be too concerned. But keep your eyes peeled for patches of discolored plants out in the field, more asymmetrical or irregular patterned areas. That a lot of times can be nutrient or pest or even fungal pathogen related. So it's, again, important to bring in somebody to help you distinguish what exactly is causing those issues and whether or not there's something we can do as far as an intervention to maybe solve those issues or at least help maximize yield in those potential problem areas. So my best advice is to get out there, go across every acre you can, and just try to make sure that you're identifying the problem areas and figuring out what issues we may have ahead of us as we go into the better part of the growing season.
And then once planting wraps up, what types of things should farmers be preparing for?
We assess nitrogen loss. In a year like this where we've had a lot of rainfall early on, a pre-side dress nitrate test can really pay for itself and then some. I think it's important to kind of have a contingency plan in place with your local retailer should nitrogen loss be more than expected so that we can go out and make a side dress or rescue application if need be. A lot of folks are doing a really good job of keeping their nitrogen rates where they need to be. So sometimes when we do have loss, that can mean a bit of a yield drag. So it's important that we're assessing, especially corn, for nitrogen loss, as well as any kind of damping off or disease-related issues out there in those damper, more moist, low-lying parts of the field. As far as soybean acres go, I think it would probably be beneficial to kind of plan on a fungicide pass at R3. Disease pressure can be an issue in most environments, even when it's hot and dry, but we know it tends to be a lot worse when soils are saturated for prolonged periods of time. So should we stay in this wet pattern going into the lion's share of the growing season here, I would expect disease pressure to be high going into those reproductive growth stages. So again, getting out in the field, scouting, being aware of what issues we may have in the field is very important. And I think it would be probably a good idea to at least consider a fungicide pass as we go into July, August timeframe, June timeframe for that matter. So just assessing stands, making sure that there's no surprises out there once we get the combine out this fall, doing the best that we can to do the work when it's fit and give our crop the best chance it can for success.
And then how can growers reach out to BRANDT for further information?
Go visit our website at BRANDT.co. Local locations around the Bloomington-Normal area. We have locations at Gridley, Fairbury, Cropsey, Cooksville, and Lexington. And then, of course, if anyone would like to get a hold of me, my cell phone number is 217-786-8891. I would love to have a conversation with folks and come out and help them if I can give them a hand.
All right. So Derek Rapp, technical agronomist for BRANDT. We do thank you for coming on the program. We'll talk to you again next time.